when you think of all the things you tell yourself, you want to talk about a mind shift change, I have to do this, I have to do this. Start saying, I get to do it, and watch the opportunities begin to appear. You'll begin to attract things into those moments that you didn't think possible.
Hi there, my name is Rob Dale, and welcome to the Living Richly podcast. I'm here with my good friends Eric Deschamps and Trevor Munven. We have been talking about the Living Richly podcast. We've been talking about living richly, about living our best lives.
And having a lot of fun doing it.
Having a lot of fun doing it. We really do appreciate you joining us on this journey, and many of you have been with us right since the beginning. You've been adding your comments and your thoughts, and just thank you so much for that. It really does mean a lot to hear from so many people. And we have been, over the last number of episodes, talking about the 4 elements. And we've been looking at how these elements are part of not only figuring out, we've talked at the beginning about our core values and understanding that the importance of really knowing what is it that we stand for, what matters to us. We've looked at the idea of our principles, the principles that we want to embrace.
The elements that make for your basically what your richest life looks like.
Thank
right?
you. Yes.
Yeah.
Together we'll get it out. And we've been looking at what are those things, and because if we don't define them, then we really are just going to be we're without a target.
Right.
But by defining them, we can begin to develop a blueprint to really living them out and experiencing them. We then began to talk about these 4 elements, right. And there is an episode, we'll put it in the show links, that we encourage you to listen to that explains why the 4 elements, how that came about, why it matters. But maybe, Eric, take a second just to explain on a real high level again, what are the 4 elements, and then where we are today as we get into talking about the body.
Yeah, well, as I explained, and we've explained in previous episodes on this subject, the 4 elements really emerged answering the question for me when I identified that being my best self was one of the ingredients or part of my blueprint to living my richest life, that when I'm evolving, when I'm growing, that really enriches me. When I began to then ask myself, well, what does being my best self look like? This notion of the 4 elements, this age-old concept of the 4 elements showed up for me and became a framework for me to ask the question, if water represents mind, then what does my mind at its best look like? If fire represents heart, what does my heart at its best look like? If wind represents spirit, then what does my spirit fully alive look like? And then finally, the earth element, which represents body, what does my body at its best look like? And that's probably of the 4 elements, the one that most of our listeners will be most acquainted with, because it is one area, let's face it, when people are looking to make a change in their life, often it starts with their health. It starts with wanting to eat better. It wants to maybe lose weight, start to exercise, take better care of themselves. And we want to be talking about the earth element today. That's the focus of our conversation.
Well, and it is interesting because we've done this with a couple of the elements where we, we'll say what you just said there, which is that most of our listeners, this is likely the one that they kind of resonate with. It may not be for you. That's what I love about these 4 elements is, for some, spirituality is the one that's the door in for people, or it's mindset, whatever it might be. But I think, to your point, probably of all of these elements, the one that we certainly see happening, when we talk about resolutions or, around New Year's or whatever the case might be. And there's a great podcast about, there's a great episode about revolution, not resolution, that I encourage you to listen to. But it usually is around the body. And I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to get a bit healthier. I want to eat better, all of those things, just as you said. When we talk about it as a element, when we look at it from this notion of the earth is the element that really the body ties into, what are we talking about? How do we define earth, body as an element in the context of living richly?
For me, it's about our relationship with our body. It can be about fitness, it can be about strength, it can be about health, but it's I think primarily about the like for me, it starts the flow to the relationship with the body.
Right.
If you say I have to lose 20 pounds because I hate me,
right.
That's not a great relationship to be starting with. And our ability, if the core premise is I hate my body, no, it doesn't matter if you lose 20 pounds if you haven't changed that actual relationship, because you're going to do something else that's going to demonstrate that you hate your body. Right. And so we often, I think the sequence really matters. Very often we want to change our body to start loving it and to enter into a healthy relationship. And I'm starting to believe it's the other way around.
Right.
We need to say, here I am.
Right.
Just as I am. What would I like to continue to nurture, to strengthen, to care for, to reveal, to whatever, but to start in that place, and then to continue to manifest that and say, how do I bring it more alive so I can live this more richly as I work my way through? So we're not gonna be giving. We were joking before the show. We're not going to be giving nutritional advice. We're not going to be giving you a workout. You probably should go see your doctor before you do anything we ask you to do. Right, but it's really about reinterpreting what's the relationship we have with our body, because it's there's a lot working against that.
Right.
There's a lot working. There's entire industries set up to say you're not good enough. The way you are right now, not good. But if you got like this, you could really love you.
Right.
Like,
well, and not only is there a whole industry around that, we even see it, our celebrities, your Instagram feeds, they're full of individuals. How many, you see the celebrities, they become a Marvel, an actor in a Marvel. Listen, you see some of these people, they're 50, 55, 60 years old, and they're built. And it's not CGI. It's not, I've just been working out there. No, there's a whole bunch of stuff going into making a body look like that, and it's not all necessarily healthy. We have all this false image of what healthy is, and we're not talking about that. We're not talking about having a six pack and being incredibly muscular. If that's a goal and somebody wants to do that, right on.
Totally good. Yeah,
absolutely.
Beautiful. But that's not what we're talking about when it comes to the notion of the body in and of itself. I love that idea about the relationship you have with your body is certainly a big element of this. What would you add to that, Eric?
Well, I think in many ways, I echo that 100%. In many ways, the relationship you have with your body is also an expression of the water element, your beliefs that you have about yourself. It's an expression of the heart element of radical self-acceptance, of loving yourself first before you can truly show up for other people. And I'm so in agreement that the images that social media present, that the media presents, that Hollywood presents, creates this false notion of what it means to be healthy, to be strong, and so much so that there's and this is something I wasn't aware of. I've been aware of eating disorders for a long time, but there's a growing trend of eating disorders among young men, because they're seeing these people on TikTok and everything else, and so on all these social media channels promoting a certain type of health that is really not sustainable for anyone else but the ultra athlete, and even for them it's a challenge.
And even for them
it's a challenge. So I think when we're talking about the body, we're talking, yes, we are talking about the relationship we have with ourselves. And when you do begin to approach yourself that way or see yourself differently, then you're going to want to take care of yourself. You're going to want to be healthier. I know for me, a big part of you guys have heard me say this probably ad nauseum, but I refer to this element as being the vibrant vessel, right? That the full expression of my mind and heart and spirit at its best gets expressed through this body. And so I want it to be healthy. I want to have access to as much energy and stamina that what have I said to you? One of my mottos, live long and strong. Like when I think of my body at its best, being youthful and feeling youthful is important to me. I'm going to be turning 52 very soon, and I don't feel
a young pup,
right? And yet I don't feel that
enough
way.
to drive.
I'm almost old, almost old enough to drive. Old enough, maybe not competent enough. But this whole notion of I don't feel that way. I feel for me, rigorous exercise, activity, movement, that active lifestyle, so many benefits. Yes, you do feel better for sure. Your clothes feel, they hang on you better, and there's something about that that's certainly worthwhile. But it's more about the mental benefits, right? Of the stress release, the energy you get, and we've talked about this as well. I think of two elements that really connect, at least initially for people, is someone, for example, who's moving from perhaps a more sedentary lifestyle and begins to let's say exercise or go to the gym and get some support doing that. It's quite amazing in the early stages when you go through those early stages where there's such significant gains at the beginning, right? I can't, give me 20 push-ups. You're like, I can't even do 6, and then a month later you're doing 20. And what that does, the physical. Again, how all these elements are connected, when you push yourself physically or you exercise and do things you haven't done before, and all of a sudden it becomes easier and easier and easier, and you can do more and more and more. If that is possible, if that type of transformation is possible, I think it begins to feed your mind and it begins to send a very strong message that if that kind of change is possible, then what else is possible? What else is within my reach that perhaps I've thought is beyond my reach? Right?
How often do we lie to ourselves, basically, right? Even in a workout, if you've got a trainer and they're saying, okay, one more, and you're like, I can't, I got no more. And then you do one more.
Always have one more.
We're always, which is another way of saying we're always wrong about what we think we're capable of. And if we're wrong there, what else is possible that we're not acknowledging that we're actually capable of? And we need to reevaluate that. And so that's where, as you said before, this is where, water and earth really play together, that mind and body, because it's now our body challenging our beliefs.
Right.
Because our mind said we were done, and our body's like, no, I got another one.
Right.
I can do that.
I've got more in the tank. I've got more in the tank. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what do the studies tell us is for men, our age, kind of what we're the average age of a male, 82?
It's
83,
it wouldn't be
84?
any higher than that.
No.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
I think it's actually
right?
lower than that. I think women are at 82.
Oh, okay.
Guys are 78 or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Average lifespan, you mean?
The average lifespan, yeah. I look at the body, I look at this element and how it ties into living richly is when I think of the things that enrich my life, my body will, certainly at this stage, my body plays a part in me being able to experience those, to be outdoors, to do these things. I want, longevity is a very important thing to me. I work out, I'm exercising every day. I'm doing daily walks. I spend time outside, all of those things. I've come to really appreciate the difference between, my purpose in working out isn't to build muscle.
Right.
I'm the oldest of the three of us. Now I know that anybody watching
by a long shot.
By a long shot.
Sure, but I know that anybody watching our YouTube channel is probably looking, going, really? Because you look the youngest of the three of us. And I understand that. I get that often from people.
Don't get that often.
I tell myself that every morning. I look at a picture of the three of us and I go, you look the youngest.
Okay, but you're 55, right?
I'm 55.
Yeah.
I turned 54 yesterday.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. You're
And I'll be
52
in a few months.
Few months. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is
In
about
our prime then.
Then
we're in
you're
our
prime.
prime.
Okay.
This
Yep.
is about longevity.
Yeah.
It's about living and being able to experience life and to allow this vessel that we're in
Right.
to be able to support us on that journey. That's really, to me, what the body, this notion of body is for me. It's not, I'm not going to build the muscle that I could have built at 25 or 30. It's just, and the quicker as a 55-year-old, not without using other substances in order to do it, right? Like it's not naturally possible. And so it's recognizing what is and then embracing that and recognizing it as movement.
Right.
And I think the more we see it as what are we doing in our physical the body to allow us to now experience all of the other elements that we want to experience
for as long as possible.
As long as possible.
The way that I see it, listen, the reality is, we could finish recording today, and I could step outside and get hit by a bus. God
Which
forbid,
would be
right?
weird because I don't know how many buses.
Not many buses come by
here,
but but that's not a reason for me not to do what I can to invest in my health, invest in living a long, healthy life, that well into my older years, I want to continue to be active. I want to continue to have energy and stamina to enjoy life fully, to not feel those limitations. I have one client that it's one of his goals. He recognizes, and we talked about the 4 elements, and he went right to this one because he recognizes that he's still got lots he wants to do. He's got goals, personally, professionally, but he recognizes that he hasn't been investing very much in the element of the earth element, investing in his physical health. And as a result, the biggest limitation he's running into right now isn't a mindset one. It's not a heart set one. It's not even a spiritual one. It's a physical limitation where he runs out of energy. He does not have the stamina he used to have to do the things that he wants to do. And he's saying, I want to turn that around. So again, getting deep into really understanding why this is important to you. I think part of why so many people set health goals and don't achieve them is often because they just stop at the surface goal of losing 20 pounds or eating better or going to the gym or exercising 3 times a week. It's more getting underneath the surface to say, why is that important to you? How is that going to improve and change your life? I think of my kids. My eldest daughter gets married next year. At some point, I'm sure that there'll be grandkids in the equation, and I don't want to be that grandfather that's sitting on the porch watching the kids play. I want to be down there playing with them. I want to be able to enjoy life as long as I can, as fully as I can. And that's why, like you, it's very important to me to be active. It's almost in some cases for me, you guys know how I'm an avid water guy. I'd love to be out on the water. And I've got this year, or just last summer, invested in basically touring, almost a racing paddleboard, stand-up paddleboard. And I'll go out on that thing for hours. And that becomes, and like 12, 15, 18 kilometer runs, right? And so for me, it actually hits all of the elements. As I looked at the things that enriched me, I was like, why do I enjoy this activity so much? I said, oh, it's because it's near water. And when I'm doing that by myself, I'm lost in my thoughts, and I'm thinking and I'm meditating. It's a physical activity, rigorous physical activity. So it hits the earth element. I absolutely love it. So it hits the heart element. And in many ways, being on the water for me is very spiritual. It's probably the most spiritual place I can be is on or near the water. And so all of a sudden, all 4 elements get activated.
That's huge.
And I'm getting all of the physical benefits of being active. So I think it's figuring out, again, like we said on so many of the other elements, there are some time-tested, proven things that are known to work and help on these fronts. But one has to figure out, 1, why it's important to them, and 2, what works for you. And one of the things that I've been using more and more as I'm working with my clients is moving away from the word exercise, because that's become a loaded word. And in using the word movement. So rather than say, how might you incorporate more exercise into your life, how might you incorporate more movement into your day-to-day life? And there are all kinds of really practical, non-exercise type ways that you can incorporate movement, because the age-old adage that movement is medicine is true. Right? If energy is constantly in motion, when we are not, when we live a very sedentary life, it's like we're out of alignment with the laws of the universe. And
I think we are,
right?
I think we totally are, right? You called it.
Yeah.
And I think, one guy who describes this really nicely actually is Warren Buffett. I don't know if you've heard this story he tells about. He said, he loves chatting with young kids, and chatting with 16-year-olds. He said, okay, imagine a genie shows up and will give you any car you want. What would you pick? And they all think about, you can have any car you want, but there's a catch. That'll be the one car you get for the rest of your life. And the question is how will you take care of that car? Goes, if there's a paint chip, you'll fix it right away so the rust doesn't spread. You'll be doing oil changes more frequently than's mandatory because it's the only car you ever get. You're going to drive it for the next 60, 70 years. And he said, that's how we need to look at our bodies.
Oh, that's good.
Wow.
We got one vehicle. You got this one thing. How do you want to take care of it? Because it's going to determine the ride you get. Right. It's going to be a big part of determining the ride that you get. Right. And so this piece around how do we want to do that? And I think it's a handy way to think about it is to say, we get this. The body is so intrinsically aligned with every single thing we do. A thought you have, you think that's not physical?
Right.
That's your brain doing things. Every feeling you have, you go, that's an emotion. Like, that's a physical feeling you're getting in your body that's telling you there's other things. Like, absolutely,
well, some describe even a
physical.
Feeling as a chemical reaction of the brain. The brain is
the body changes.
The body
right?
is changing and creating. Think of when you're driving and you drive. We've talked about driving into a patch of fog, and how not only do you go through your thinking changes, your entire physiology. Right. It's a physical response. You grip the wheel more tightly. You squint the eyes as though that's going to help. You tend to lean forward in your chair. Your heart rate might increase. You might start to warm up and start to sweat because your body is pumping all these chemicals. I mean, everything is a physical reaction.
Everything is physical.
Right.
And we have to remember that. We have to remember we are physical beings. And if we're ignoring that, we're ignoring who we are.
Right.
And ignoring it is also a message to self.
Right.
You don't matter.
Right.
Right. And that's not going to take you where you want to go in terms of your health, your care, your body, your life, the quality of the experience of all these other things. So imagine as you're taking better care of your body, as you're being more appreciative of it, as you're moving more, the quality for all of those other things to improve also goes up.
Right.
Because, so you're getting all kinds of leverage around it as well. It's just so incredibly powerful.
And it's interesting because for me, if I look back long before the four elements was a framework for me to kind of measure my or gauge my spiritual journey or my growth journey, I would say that of the four elements, this was the one that I picked up several years ago, leaning into the earth element and getting back into shape. Started with running, and then it started I was getting personal training at a local gym. I lost about 20 pounds, and now I would say I'm like I said, about to turn 52. I'm probably in the best shape of my life. I wear the same size jeans I used to wear as an 18-year-old, right?
They're probably back in style.
They're probably back in style, so I held on to them, right? So I held on to them.
Smart.
They weren't in style then.
Right.
No.
Listen. I'm even thinking of growing the mullet back, right? Because
Nice.
I hear that
I really
the
wish you would.
mulletastrophe would be quite
we're
something.
behind that.
Yeah,
You're
we're
behind
supportive
that
of that. Yeah.
But I invested all this time and energy, and it feels great. It feels good to feel like I feel, but I know that until I started paying attention to the other elements, even though I felt great physically, even though I had more stamina, felt stronger, felt better, looked better, all of it, man, my life was still pretty hollow, right? Because my mind was off, my heart was off, my spirit was off. And I think a lot of folks, again, the thing about the earth element of all the other ones is it has a limited shelf life. Now, I do believe, especially with modern science and all the advancements they're making, I think we're going to see human lifespan just continue to increase. So, right, because of the advancements in science, medicine, all of it. And certainly, I'm leaning into that. As I said earlier, I want to live my richest life, my fullest life for as long as I can. I want to squeeze as much living into this thing we call life as I possibly can. But it still has a limited shelf life. As I get older, right, even with the advancements and even with, in medicine, whatever, I won't be able to do the things that I do now the same way. I won't be able to lift as much. I may not be able to paddle as far. Though there are natural limitations that come with aging, I do think we can cheat nature. I think we can hack nature. We don't have to just accept the fact that we're a certain age and
there's
therefore,
so much research in biohacking.
Or align with it. Biohacking in some ways is very much about deepening our alignment with how things actually work.
It's called hacking, and yet it's probably the most wrong word way to describe that. Because is it really hacking, or is it tapping into the potential that's been there all along that we just weren't aware of? But here, if we invest, if I can just just finish that thought. So the even with all that said, the earth element has its limitations in terms of how far it can take you, and begins at some point. You start to see some of those limitations of age start to show up, right? And if you're listening to this as a 30-year-old, trust me, one day you'll understand what we're talking about. However, investing in the other elements, your mind, your heart, your spirit. No shelf life there, gentlemen. Like there, you can continue to build and create.
You have infinite capacity.
Infinite capacity to keep creating the life that you want. So even in time, as your body begins to age and maybe not have the same capacity it once had, those other elements will kick in. And this is where I think folks that invest heavily into the earth element at the expense of the others, I would recommend you really pay attention to what we're saying. It's interesting now because for me, working out, I work out probably 5-6 days a week, just like you, and it's a very important part of my life. But it's often in my morning routine is when I do it. Not always, but most of the time. And in the mornings now, if I slept in a little bit too much, or if I'm going to skip something, I will skip my workout. But I will not skip my mind and heart and spirit time, because I find that the benefits of that, again, I wouldn't neglect the earth element completely, but it's a notion of if I'm going to skip something, I'm in pretty good shape. I can afford to miss my workout
it's
today,
almost actually,
but I don't want to miss my mind and heart and spirit.
Well, you're saying you're going to skip your body workout, not your spirit workout or your mind workout, and because they all require exercise.
Exactly.
It's just a different type, right? We're constantly working. It's interesting how they do. Often again, we've talked about this with each of these elements, how they tie in together. They don't separate into nice, easy compartments where they all stand alone. They do blend. I know for me, it was starting with the body was what got to the mind, because I started to, when I hit these capacities and saying, I can't go any further, I can't do one, lying to ourselves, I can't do one more. When you break through that, you realize the mindset around that. The gym I attend, the classes I go to, which are high intensity training classes, I work out beside a 70-year-old guy. A bunch of 60-year-old guys, and they're beasts. Now their body, they don't have the same muscle component, composition that I have, in the same way I don't to the 30-year-old guys that are in there. But man, I'll tell you, they can keep going. Their endurance and their movement and their ability, because they've made a commitment to it, and they all tie in together. But I think you're absolutely right. If you focus on any of the elements at the expense of the others, I think that you miss out on something. You can have a strong mind, but if your body is completely shut down and broken down, that's going to be a struggle. You can still live a rich life. It's just going to be different. So I think the notion of why the body is important here, it's as one of these elements, they do tie in together for sure.
Well, for me, I mean, when I made a list, when we went back, one of the early episodes after the core values one, we talked about, again, that blueprint of your richest life and what are the elements of that. A big part of me, of what enriches my life when I made that list, certainly was exercise and activity and being in the outdoors. But learning is also a big one for me. Reading and learning, feeding my mind. And so again, when you want to find activities that really enrich you, think of the ones that touch multiple elements. So do I love hitting the weights hard? Absolutely. I get a charge from that, right? It feels good to challenge your body, push yourself through, and do something you didn't think you could. Add a new movement that you've never done before, that you've got to practice and learn and watch your form, and all of a sudden that takes the enjoyment of that from here, and it takes it to a whole other level. Why? It's hitting more than one element. And I think this is the notion that we're after, or what we're hoping will inspire our listeners, is this notion of, as you begin to ask these questions that we've been raising with you about it, what matters most? What matters most to you? What does a rich life look like to you? What does a best version of you along these four elements look like? That you begin to identify activities and practices and rituals, which will be a whole other episode on its own, but things that you can do regularly that don't just make you feel good, they make you feel great. They don't just dribble into your cup, like they make it overflow. Why? Because for you, they hit multiple elements at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
we're not checking a box. We're building a life.
I love that.
Right?
Love that.
It's. I think that's what we found when we made this move to the farm. Right? It was to be outside more, like almost all the time. I love it outside. You guys know it. I'm like out there all the time. The house is heated with a wood burning stove, so we load wood every day, and we have that great fire smell, which I love, and we get stars, and right, that daily motion here as we're caring for animals and moving things around is that motion. I don't do the same kind of training that you guys do at all, but I'll tell you that motion has been so helpful and healing for me to be out in this place in nature, to be shaping it. At the same time, I'm trying to listen to it and understand what it's trying to do and say, how do I work in alignment with that to improve this tangly vineyard here that I'm working my way through, and to bring the thought processes. You guys know we'll talk about it under kind of practices and rituals, but I don't enter the vineyard unless I know what thought I'm going to repeat over and over. And then I use those repetitious things to anchor that in. Right. And we can all do that.
Affirmations, intentions, and associations.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then at Thanksgiving, to have the meal that we have, we had chicken from our neighbors, and everything else that we ate, we grew. And we knew we went and pulled it out of the garden, brought it inside, cleaned it, cooked it, ate it. Was just an extraordinary experience. And so part of that for us now is around what are we eating? Right. And knowing where it came from and what it was like, right? You talked about the hunters in Alone, about honoring the food that they were eating and where it came from. You can do that regardless of whether or not you've killed it. True. Right? It's still something you've either tended to or brought into your world, and it's going to help to continue to nourish your body. And there's a gratitude that's healthy with that. A lot of people, they pray before a meal. It's an expression of gratitude and thanks for what's in front of them as it nourishes the body, right? To support all of the rest that's happening as well. And there are so many ways we can bring these into our lives. It's not about the diet or the workout, though. There's nothing wrong. If you want to change your nutrition, okay. You want to move more? Awesome. Right?
I think we referenced this in an earlier episode. They did some research recently, a number of studies to show, to ask the question on two fronts. One, what is the best exercise modality? Or the most successful one, the one that gets the best results. And they also did the same thing on the best diet or the best sort of nutrition plan. And so, they on the nutrition side, they can, is it paleo? Is it keto? Is it intermittent fasting? On the workout side, is it pushing weights? Is it cardio work? Is it cross training? Like, what is it that leads to it? And what they discovered is there is no plan that has a better track record than another. The single greatest determining factor to success was picking one and sticking with it, doing it, as opposed to continuing to change. And I love how in our conversation, the whole aspect of nature is coming out so strongly, right? Whether it be you at the farm, me on the water, you with your hikes, we all have a pretty strong connection to nature. Let's face it, it's called the earth element, right? And although it's right, mind blown. I think when you're able to combine motion in nature, time in nature, just going for a walk in nature.
There's good research on that too.
The research that shows like taking a walk versus taking a walk in nature, and it's off the charts, the difference in terms of the results. And I think it's, again, we're so used to living as digital zombies, where we're sitting on our couch at night, thumbing on through all our social media channels, right, admiring other people's greatest moments and wondering why we're not living our own, or we're binging the latest series. And listen, there are series I love to binge. You said you just binged Andor recently. Right. What a great series. I can't wait for season 2 of Andor. Yeah. All big Star Wars fans.
We'll
put that in the show notes. We'll link to Disney Plus directly to the Andor show. Listen,
funny.
It's not about that those things are bad. Of course not. We all need sometimes downtime, but let me speak to the screen time. One of the biggest things that people say, biggest excuses that they give for not investing, and let's expand the workout thing, whether it's exercising the body, the mind, the spirit, the heart. What is the number one reason people give for not doing it?
Time.
I don't have time. So I looked this up recently.
This gets uncomfortable for people, doesn't
let me
it?
challenge those of you that are listening about not having time. I challenge you to just Google the average leisure time available to an average Canadian or American, because actually it doesn't matter which one you choose. The numbers are almost identical, and you'll be shocked about the number of hours available. Do you guys want to take a guess? Do you know what this number is?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay, so it's between, Trev?
4.5 and 5 hours, isn't it?
4.5 to 5.5 hours daily. So average of 5, depending on which research you read, but the average is 5 hours of leisure time daily. This means we have 5 hours available to us to invest in ourselves, to invest in our growth, to invest in something that's going to be meaningful to us. When we did the exercise or started the exercise of what are the things that enrich you, you guys remember we also made a comparison list. What are the things that deplete you, right?
Right.
And then remember, I came up with this category. What are the neutral activities? These are the things that, because there are things that deplete us for sure, right? They empty our cup versus fill it. But then there are activities that we engage in that are called, they're kind of neutral. Yeah. Watching TV is one of them, right? Enjoying a drink, drinking socially can be neutral. What whatever, you could put a bunch of things in that category. Spending time on social media is kind of neutral. But if you start spending too much time drinking, watching television, on social media, right? Like now we're moving to neutral to less than neutral, right? Healthy to less than healthy.
You can also take them and say, how do I take this neutral activity and turn it into something good?
Do you guys remember what I did when I first started experiencing my transformation? I'm so glad you said that, because I had gone through a period like a lot of folks had with COVID, with all the inactivity, all the lockdowns, limited things that we could do. And I come to realize I developed an unhealthy relationship with social media. I was spending far too much time on my feed, just like brainlessly thumbing through, and before you know it, an hour and a half has passed and you've done nothing productive, and nor has it given you much. Right. If anything, you're kind of left going, oh, I wish this, I wish that. You're comparing yourself with the digital Joneses, forgetting that all people are posting for the most part are their highlights, not their real life, just the highlights. And so I began this process of daily, I made a commitment that I'm going to start resetting my relationship with social media, but every day in my Facebook and Instagram story, I am going to post an intention or an affirmation. Remember that?
Right. Yeah,
I did that for 3 months straight. And I used what was an unhealthy habit to build a healthy one. I don't do it anymore, nor am I on social media much anymore. But the daily habit of setting an intention, making an affirmation, and deciding what kind of day that I want, I used an unhealthy habit to build a healthy
It's alchemy.
Right.
You transform something into something else. Right. Of that realized and revealed a greater value, a greater expression of you. Right. So we can take it, in a lot of ways, we need to look and say, hey, what can I take out of the equation here? What is not serving this life that I'm building? And sometimes the life that we're building, because we're doing it in families, in partnerships, in relationships, etc. But sometimes there are things that stay, and you just say, how do I want to engage with that?
Right.
And that's where we've got infinite creativity as well, right? Even if it's like, I got to do dishes, I hate doing dishes. You might say, well, it's neutral or negative, maybe. I'm not sure it's quite depleting you, but it's certainly, we could put it in the neutral category. But how can you make it a time together? Can you put on a podcast, for example?
Could you recommend a
There's a
podcast?
great one.
I'll put one in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put one in the show notes.
Right? What else can we link it with?
Right.
What else can we combine it with to turn it into something that's going to be more valuable and build the life that we're after?
I started doing that. Not that I still work from the home office, so I don't drive a lot, but started, now that things are more open, doing more work with clients on site, and go out to hockey games and stuff. So finding myself more in traffic than I used to be.
Right.
I certainly don't miss being in traffic every single day. I found that would definitely make it in my my list of things that deplete me. And I remember the first few times saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe how bad it is to be in traffic again." And I found myself being in a very negative mindset. And then I began realizing, wait a second, I've got all this time to myself. I get to have this time to myself on my way somewhere. And so I've never been a big audiobook guy, to be honest. I do prefer being able to sit down, focus, and read. But what I started doing as reinforcement is books that I've read that I really enjoy and have been really meaningful. I now also get the audio version, and as a reinforcement of something I've already studied or read or taken in, when I'm driving somewhere and I'm by myself, I pop in the audiobook. And all of a sudden now, what would have felt like 45 minutes of wasted time is 45 minutes of brain training time.
Well,
right?
and coincidentally, our podcasts are typically about 45
They'd be
minutes
perfect
to 50
for my.
minutes.
I'm not going to be listening
I feel
to
like
myself.
I know what's happening here.
I discourage audiobooks because
podcasts would be much better.
Much better. So when we talk about where do people start, and maybe we could all give a couple of maybe some best practices or some ideas around where we would start. A couple that I would suggest right out of the gate is stop giving yourself the room to talk yourself out of starting.
Right.
I've heard this, a number of podcasts that do this where it's, and I know I've done this for myself, where the alarm goes off or I'll be laying in bed and I need to get up. I need to get my walk in. I need to, get moving or whatever. But I'm comfortable. And if you give yourself time, you talk yourself out of it. And it's a simple practice. I can't get over how simple it is and how effective it is for me. And that's just the simple countdown.
Right.
Where
who is it that
I can't. There's a number. There's one particular who does the 5 second countdown. We'll find it. There's a good TED talk around that. But it's just should I get up right now? I need to work out 5, 2, 3, 4. You're 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Learn to count first and then get it. I was going to go 3, 2, 1, and then that was Rob math through
first learn math.
But the notion of you stop talking to yourself about it and you just do that would be one of my recommendations.
I would add to that a similar concept is stop next weeking your decision. Stop next monthing it. Stop
doesn't
next
have to start on
it.
Monday. It doesn't have to start on January 1st.
It can start right now. If you think again, take steps that you can sustain. Take small steps that push you, but don't swing for the fences on this.
Go put your shoes on now.
Right.
While you're listening.
Right. While you're listening. But get off the couch. Go take some simple ways you can incorporate more movement into your life. When you're out shopping or running errands, don't park near the entrance. Park across the parking lot and walk. When you're going somewhere that has an elevator, if it's not 20 floors up, take the stairs. Right.
So, and it's funny. So of course, Wendy, my girlfriend, is part of what she does a lot of things for people, but part of that is as a personal trainer. And that's the running joke with us is we get anywhere near an escalator, and if there's stairs, we're taking the stairs. We're going up the stairs.
But it's funny how much more activity you can get in. Like I wear an Apple Watch, and sometimes I look at the stats. I don't need to anymore. I've built a rhythm around movement that I'm pretty happy with, and some days I don't hit the numbers, and it's okay because I'm hitting a pretty high level of activity. But it's amazing when I was tracking it, just little changes like that, and you could see literally add thousands of steps a day just by making small, sustainable changes, as opposed to, again, the swing for the fences approach where you may be able to sustain it for a short period of time, but then you don't, and then you give up and you reinforce this belief in your brain that why bother trying? I can't succeed. Take smaller steps that build confidence instead. Right?
Another best practice that I would certainly encourage people is change your language. And you gave the example with in the car and stuck in traffic,
get to.
right?
From have to to get to.
That's a Kateism. I learned that one from Kate, and it's powerful.
Right.
When you think of all the things you tell yourself, you want to talk about a mind shift change. I have to do this. I have to do this. Start saying, I get to do it, and watch the opportunities begin to appear. You'll begin to attract things into those moments that you didn't think possible.
Yeah, and I didn't get it from Kate. To me, it was just it is right down from me. I probably got it from you, from Harvard Business Journal, one or the other. But there is. We'll
have to tell that story.
Absolutely. There is this notion of when we tell ourselves, or I'm not allowed to do that, or I can't eat that cake because I'm on a diet. Well, yeah, now you're going to feel like you're missing out. You're going to feel like you're, and so when you change your language, speak to yourself and even how you speak to others from that opportunity standpoint, then rather the losing out on or missing standpoint, is such a shift in mindset. Best practices. What are some other ones that you guys
appreciate where you are right now.
That's a great one.
I won't even say love yourself. Just appreciate where you are right now. You can move, you can do things, you can get out, you can make choices, you can go for a walk, maybe a run, a bike ride, you can park further away, you can stretch, you can do yoga, you can, I know every person will be a little bit different, but you're capable of so much right now that you don't need to wait to become something or someone else in order to start living this out fully, and let your body follow you. Right. Don't be checking in on your body to say, am I good now? Because I'm not sure that answer will ever be enough. It's the wrong question. Right. You are. Yeah. Just accept, appreciate, and start to use what you have. That would be my advice. Yeah. That and go on a diet, lose 20 pounds. No, don't do that.
Start a 65-day challenge.
Right.
Truly, it is that radical self-acceptance.
It's so true.
And just saying, listen, this is me now. I'm not going to apologize for that. I am where I am.
Yeah.
But what I have now is the capacity to choose whatever I do next. Right. Whether it's go for a walk or a run or take a class or go paddling or I don't care. Yeah. Change what you eat, choose what you eat, right? Just make it about choosing. Why are you doing it? Because I choose to.
Yeah. Right. I align the why you're doing it to your values, to your core values.
Absolutely.
We talk about the notion, I read this recently, the notion of if you strengthen the core, the core, physically, your core is so critical to the strengthening of the body in the same way that your core values are so critical to the strengthening of your mind. Right. And I love
your
when
life.
To life really, to read that. And everyone understands that from a physical standpoint. It's true as well with all of this. If we align this stuff to our core values, the why we're all wanting to focus on our body, the why we're wanting to focus on spirit, or any of them.
Strong core gives you better balance, better posture, better alignment, right? All of it.
I love it.
And so what a great analogy.
Yeah, I love this one. So that would be another one I would have. Any last ones from you?
No, I think again, it's figure out what works for you. Even if you just focused on putting down the phone a little bit more, turning off Netflix a bit more often, stop observing other people living a better life that, at least in your imagination, they are living a better life.
What you're looking for isn't on a screen.
It's not on a screen. It's actually locked inside of you, waiting to be discovered, and figuring out again what that looks like for you. Figure out an activity that is easier for you to do from a perspective. I hear people say, well, the only way I can get in shape is to go to the gym, but I hate the gym. So I said, do something else then, right? Maybe you'll end up at the gym someday, but don't do something that makes you miserable, hoping it's going to make you happy. Figure out what makes you happy, what fills your cup. Combine movement, motion with it, and you're more likely to sustain it and make a lifestyle change as opposed to what most folks do, which is start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. Right?
So good, so good. Listen, we thank you so much. Appreciate each one of you that have been listening, that have been a part of this journey with us. There might be some others that are in your community that you're connected to that you think would really appreciate this content to look at not only the element of the body, but all of the elements that we've been talking about over the last number of episodes. We would encourage you to take a moment and just share this content and to maybe provide a couple of comments as you share it with some of your friends and family, and invite them to be part of the journey as well.
Subscribe, stay with us. Stay with us. You can tell we're working our way through it as well. We're living this. We don't have all the answers, but pieces are revealing themselves to us through the work that we've been doing and through others that we're working with. We're going to keep sharing that with you. That's all for you. That's all for you. Stay with us.
And make sure to subscribe. No, you said that already. Make sure to go to our website.
And if I didn't mention it, I think you should subscribe.
I just thought it bear repeating. It's so important that you subscribe that I felt it was important to say it again. Yeah. But we do want you to subscribe to our website. Go to livingrichly.me/act. Every episode we're posting in the show notes. We're going to post the resources mentioned, the tools mentioned, the books mentioned. We want to make as much of the resources that have been impactful for us and continue to be impactful for us. We want to make those available to you. And so make sure you visit the website, sign up for the newsletter, and you won't miss anything.
So again, thank you for taking the time to listen in with us. For those of you that might be watching on our YouTube channel as well, thank you for taking the time to watch. If you aren't listening to this while you're out walking or doing something and you're maybe just sitting down and listening to this podcast, encourage you to perhaps even now to find a way that you can embrace and do movement into your routine. And perhaps you could even start now. 3, 2, 1. Go.